Welcome to Cross Politic, Chocolate Knox, Pastor Toby, and that is not Gabe. No, that is Mark Coppinger. I'm so sorry. The doctor, Mark Coppinger. Reverend, Bishop,
Doctor,
Pastor.
Bishop.
Yes, Archbishop.
Mark.
Oh, man.
He's here in studio. He has no idea what he's here for. He'll probably never come back again, but we're very, very happy to have you here. I want you to get ready to report a murder. You're about to be a witness. You're going to be called to court. It's going to get very, very ugly, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, Pastor Toby.
All right, is that time?
It is.
In a world overwhelmed by chaos and confusion, it's time to take a stand. The Built to Conquer Conference is here to help families reclaim spiritual ground that's been lost. We're equipping men and women with the tools and resources they need to stand firm against the challenges of our times. Join us on February 22nd. That would have been last Saturday. So, hopefully you joined them. It's a full-day Bible conference. Anyways, I'm going to
just call them and bless them.
Yeah, just tell them. I hope you had a great conference.
And we're praying that the Lord uses it right now in Jesus' name. That's what you do.
We are recording this so that the prayer works. Are you looking for the Office 365 or Suite competitor, or for the parallel economy? Look no further than Pax Mail. Email? Check. Office Suite with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint alternatives? Check. Calendars, contacts, appointments, and forms? Check, by the way. When I asked my future father-in-law if I could possibly marry his daughter, he said, you know what I need you to do is make me a budget on a spreadsheet. And I had never made a budget before in my life, and it was a really good learning experience.
So that was his bride tax, huh?
Yeah. That was his bride.
I like it. See, it's biblical.
Privacy matters. We don't sell ads. We safeguard our data like it's our own. We also believe in protecting innocence. Pax Mail believes that every child deserves a chance at life. That's why we use a portion of our proceeds to support initiatives to save children from abortion. Join the movement. Be part of something bigger. Help us build a parallel economy. Keep the money in the family. Join Pax Mail, and let's build a brighter future today. Visit paxmail.cc. That's paxmail.cc. We're really grateful to have
Mark Coppinger.
Dr. Mark Coppinger in the studio with us.
Thanks for having me over.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have been a pastor, a professor, a denominational worker, a public ethicist. That's really scary. Army officer for like 25 years?
28, yeah.
28. Don't forget those three.
Yeah, for real. Short-term missionary. And I think probably the most significant piece of your bio is that you've been married for 54 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Same woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, when I asked my father-in-law to be for her hand, and I'd been around for a while, I thought he'd say, well, sure, of course, we know you. He was pastor of a big old church. He took me down, and he sat behind his desk and put a chair in front of it. And he explained to me how I was very fortunate to have his daughter. I mean, I was shopping up for sure. And he had been a bombardier in World War II, flying missions over Germany.
Yes.
And somewhere in it, he said, if you ever lay a hand on her in anger, I'll come after you with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And I took him, I think he really meant it.
Yeah.
And I had to change my whole modus operandi. How am I going to keep her in control?
Right.
But no, I didn't. I haven't, and I think he'd come out of the grave to get me if I did.
You all need to check out markcoppinger.com.
Yes, you do.
That's how you can follow his work. You've testified in front of Congress, I hear.
It was the Congressional Commission or National Commission on Military, Public, and National Service. McCain was behind it. There were others. It was kind of a bipartisan thing. And they were looking at trying to get more kids and more folks into the national service. And they were very keen on putting women in the selective service system.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Which would make women eligible for the draft.
Yes, exactly. And
Okay.
we were again at our denomination had a statement against it.
Yes.
Southern Baptist Convention.
The Southern Baptist Convention spoke against it. And they were saying, look, for one thing, they are lesser agents in lethality and survivability. So I was on a panel. It was held at Gallaudet University, which is the school for the deaf in D.C., but there was the big panel. The majority of them were Democratic appointments. So you could tell where they wanted to go with this. But anyway, I was there with a Quaker and a Catholic and a libertarian atheist and a woman who was a major who served in Iraq. And so we were speaking against it. Yeah, it was a real privilege.
Wow, what a weird So you have some effect of working with people in the populist movement.
Yeah, I think so. Right, yeah.
Those shouldn't all connect around, but all of them agree that women shouldn't be in the military.
That panel didn't. In the afternoon, you had 5 more who said that you should. But it was a privilege to. It was on C-SPAN too, and it's still up there. But yeah, I mean, it touched my life in a lot of ways. For one thing, my son-in-law, he was a White House staffer under Bush II. And when he came out of office, then we got to go visit Bush in the Oval Office. That was kind of fun.
Oh, wow.
But he became an attorney, and to make a long story short, he went to Harvard, got his degree, and then he clerked for someone that Trump appointed in the federal, the D.C. Circuit Court.
Okay.
So it's touched our family in a variety of ways.
So I feel like we should, and this is actually also important. I mentioned that you've been married for 54 years, but you also now mentioned a son-in-law, but children and grandchildren?
3 kids. One son is a pastor in the Atlanta area. One has been, and I have to be careful about saying this, but he has been an M in Southeast Asia, in a place where you don't just say.
Yep.
And then a daughter married a White House staffer.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, and grandkids?
10 grandkids.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. So, no great grandkids yet?
No. Okay. But one is a freshman at Auburn now, and they're kind of getting up there.
So all your kids are baptized then?
Let's see. No, I'm thinking.
Okay, I was just wondering here.
Yeah, we don't do it right away.
Okay.
We Baptists, but no, they are all very active in church, and I think I can't remember the tally, but I think the youngest is 9. I better get this right, and the others.
Well, that's the grandkids. I'll give you. I will work on that.
Oh, you mean my kids are?
Yeah, kids.
I thought you said grandkids. No. Absolutely.
Yeah, all your kids. Look how he said it. It's like, there wasn't a question in my mind. I should have baptized them as babies.
That's right. No, someone said, "Do you believe in infant baptism?" And I said, "Believe in it? Heck, I've seen it." But at any rate, mercy. One of them was a Marine in the Iraq War twice.
Okay.
And then he came back and went to seminary, and he preaches in the language out there.
Well, good job, Dad.
The others, the other's been my pastor, and now he's moved to a big old church in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We've taken him out of the will because we don't have the grandkids handy. And I will say this: my daughter had me join the American Legion in Nashville, so that she could be a child of the Legion or something. There's some kind of connection, so that she could reserve the Legion hut where she lives, so that she could have it for Bible school for the neighborhood kids. And so one of the people at Mark Dever's church said that she's the best evangelist in their church. So we're really grateful to God.
Wonderful.
Now, the way I got to know you was we worked on a film called By What Standard.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know you before that. Yeah. Shame on me. So don't be like me. Get to know Dr. Mark Coppinger.
Well, you know, David came back from working with you, and he told us, he says, I've been one of the guys that worked with Dr. Coppinger, and you particularly recommended his book on sort of moral apologetics.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I remember you telling me about that, so I went and bought it. And I've got it.
You and my mom. And said, no,
and you got that, and then we worked together on what was it? Wield the Sword, which was you talked about aesthetics. And so you're right in my world with art and with theology and it applying to the world and the culture. But the thing that I respected about you the most was that when we were making the film By What Standard, and this is something that should go in your bio, but I don't know if you could say it there and still hold being humble. But it's hard to find men with backbone. Uh-huh. And I remember the fight that we had making By What Standard. You didn't move a muscle, and you were in the thick of it, right? Like you were touching all the sides at the same time, and you were bold. You didn't move a muscle. You didn't back out of the film. You did you stayed and you fought, and I was like, wow. And you had stuff that you could have risked. It was a risk, and you stayed it because it was right. And I was like, wow. And you don't have a mean bone in your body. Right, it doesn't come off
that
that
on my resume, but I think I've had a few. But thank you. But no, listen, I'm not anybody to know. But when you came in, I thought this guy is top pro, has the heart of the heart of the Lord.
Stop you.
So I'm the fan. You stop that.
No, and it was when you're in the middle of battle and people stand up and fight, it's encouraging. And when you just don't forget people like that.
Well, and everything. I mean, I think. Everything that went up kind of hit the fan in that moment as when the trailer dropped and a bunch of people were like, what in the world are you going to do? Yeah. Everything has been revealed to like everybody was like, no, you're taking this too far.
Right.
Like we're all wrong. Anybody that thought you were taking this too far was wrong.
Yeah.
And all the ways in which you were insinuating and saying, suggesting, I think we got a problem here in the SBC.
They're going to make their move on us in the sex stuff.
Yeah, this is where the problems are. Everything's been demonstrated to be absolutely.
It's fun to be vindicated in a lot of ways. It really.
Yeah.
But I tell you, there are a lot of us who were alarmed at what was happening in some of our seminaries and with biblical inerrancy.
Right.
And this started back in the 80s. And so, yeah, we've been in that fire for a long time, and God bless that sort of thing. But, yeah, just an old guy.
So, you've seen some battles. You've seen some battles in the church. You've also seen some politics over many years.
Yeah.
And so I think we're really interested in getting a little bit of your take on, what's going on right now in this like what feels to us like a really unique radical movement. I don't know which clip you want to start with.
Well, first, I promised people there was going to be a murder. And
that's
I
right.
want to make sure. So
Yeah.
everybody needs to. Because Trump just assassinated somebody.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
He was wearing a yellow tie.
Someone call 911.
What just happened? What just is? Can you do that?
He just did.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn. I'm torn because here's
What are you torn about?
well, think about
Come
it.
on.
Okay, no, I like what he did. Don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at what he did. I like what he did. Here's the deal, though. You know what a state can be if it doesn't have to rely on federal funds?
Free.
Right.
The constitutional
Right.
under the federal system.
Right. So I'm like, no, don't threaten them with freedom, Trump. No, they don't think of it that way. No, but when the state has to be self-sufficient and figure it out, well, he knows they're going to budge because they've set up themselves to receive federal funds to function, to operate, and to get their nice big paychecks and to live affluent, right, off the people. So that he knows they're going to move.
He rattles the chains.
He rattles the chains, absolutely. But we do want states not to have to depend on federal funds. And it's kind of like you're forcing states to now be in this place where they say states' rights. We get to do what we want to in this state. And we're not going to take your federal funding. And they're like, God, I didn't have this on my bingo card.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were going to give
Like
us
Hillsdale or some of those schools. Say,
Right, exactly.
The money brings hooks.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
But, you're at a place now, I've been watching J.D. Vance do this too. We talked about this last week where now that what Trump is doing, what J.D. Vance is doing, people can't hide like they once hid before. We're here at a banquet, right?
Like if it used to be you go to like a banquet like this and everybody just claps politely and says a lot of niceties. Yes. But if you go to a banquet with Trump or Vance or what's looking like anybody on his cabinet,
right?
They're all loaded for bear. We're
Yeah.
I don't think we know how to. I'm sorry, Dr. Coppinger.
I was just going to say, you don't like this? Let JD talk a while. I mean,
same thing.
Set things on fire. Yeah.
Did you hear? I mean, and Kash Patel just got sworn in today as the new director of the FBI, and his like welcoming speech was like, "We're coming for you."
Oh, really?
Like, that's what he said. He's armed for bear, and he's like, you get ready. We're coming.
Yeah.
This is a moment I think that Christians really have to observe. I was going to ask you a question. I don't want to forget. Let me write down. There we go. You don't know what that means, but I know what it means. So do you think that the SBC could survive a Trump? Because I think what we
like a
Trump
president of the SBC,
a person first before they're elected to any environment. Because inside the SBC, they play politics, and they know that they have to win over the messengers in order to be able to get anything moved or passed. And so everybody plays to the level of understanding of the messengers. And so they know the messengers don't like people that are angry. They don't like people that are mean. They don't like people. Everybody has a understanding of how the messenger is built. And they arrange all their communication around that instead of kind of being like, well, for lack of a better, Jesus, who just comes in there and flips over the tables and starts beating people with their own whips. The messengers wouldn't like that very much, right?
Well, let me tell you a story. And they're like, wait, that's about us.
Right. But it seems like what's happening right now in politics, this is not the place to have that conversation. It's completely unorthodox. He's at a banquet, and then he's like, is the governor of Maine here right now?
Right. Right.
But he's been doing this his whole campaign as
this is
running for
nothing
president.
different.
Hey, there goes my guy. Hey, come up here and say some words.
Right.
You better have something. This reminds me of a charismatic church. Oh, Brother Shannon's here. Come up here and sing us a song, Brother Shannon. You got the mic for 5 minutes.
Or Brother Shannon, have you repented of that sin yet?
Yeah, I have to talk to Jesus about that. Get off them video games and go get a job, brother. That's what it's like.
You don't know what he's going to say.
So if you come,
Brother Shannon, are you here?
I repented, Pastor. It's all gone. I threw out the video games, And so now you're almost like, do I even want to be there?
Right.
Because if I haven't dealt with this, he's going to deal with it in front of people.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm looking at how Trump is leading. I'm watching Doge do what they're doing, and I'm saying, man, can the SBC, which is the largest Christian denomination outside the Catholic Church here in America, could they handle a Trump type, with everything character inside of the SBC?
Well, there are rumbles here and there about. We had the law amendment which said that you can't be a woman pastor in churches. And Rick Warren's church was excluded, and so said, why don't we codify this thing, change the bylaws, and just nail it down? And it had to have 66% or something to pass, and I think it was like 62. And a lot of people who were in charge of things were saying, hey, don't do it. And they felt like, yeah, we did it, but 60% of the people were saying, let's put this down. I think there are some real rumblings. I've been asked to write a piece about how maybe Trump blew up the ERLC or something like this.
Oh,
and, for Christ
really?
overall, that was one of the things in the ballpark. But it seems to me that he's provoked some guys who are really so woke. I chaired the resolutions committee back in '89, and then was the staff relations guy for it. And back in the day, they would put resolutions out that you'd have to pass them, or the people are just going to bust. If they're going to put gays in the military or something, we show up and we got to say something. Or they would instruct us a bit, and once we got it, then we'd say, yeah. So, we didn't know what RU-486 was until they brought it up, and we thought, oh, okay, yeah, no, we're again that. But they've morphed into saying, okay, these are tools that we want to use. We want to lift up CRT. We want to praise this and that, and so we're kind of being used to
use critical theory as an analytical tool.
Yeah, an analytical tool.
Right.
That was you were there.
Yeah, that's
2019.
right.
And so now we're feeling used. I think we're basically amiable people. I know people joke about Baptists being, firebrands, but I think we're basically amiable people, and we kind of want to get along. But I think, things are bubbling, and it's like, you talk about Doge. I've heard people say we need some fresh stuff with more edge, more of a Trumpian feel, as you say.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So who knows? But when all the press, my goodness, back in the day, I think I was with the Indiana Convention, and I think out of the 38 state papers, only one was cheering for the inerrancy revolution, and it was ours. And so when you've got the press covering, saying, hey, no, things are cool, we got this, boy, it's hard to work against that sort of thing.
Have you ever seen anything like this Trump phenom?
No, I really have not. For one thing, he is really brash and you can't say that, and says, you want to say it again? Whoa, this is very bracing. Yeah. But no, it's I was behind him in 2016.
Were you really from the beginning?
Well, I think I was more for Cruz at the very, very beginning or something like that. But as it was shaking out. And even in chapel there, we would have people taking shots at him, and it was sort of like, oh no, he's nasty, you can't do this sort of thing. So I wrote this piece for American Spectator called "Brother, Can You Spare a Maxim?" And, the old thing was Kant said, only have those rules you can make universal law. So I said, okay, what's your rule? If somebody's not totally holy, you can't use him in government and do things. And I said, well, look, Patton, I think he was an adulterer. He was certainly narcissistic, and I believed he thought in reincarnation that, and he was abusive in certain ways. But when you want to relieve Baston, you send in him,
Right.
and I'm thinking, for all this, where I had a colleague who said, people say, yeah, the lesser of two evils, but he's still evil. You can't do that. And he said, all I ever vote for is the lesser of two evils. And boy, I'm so grateful he got in there.
Yeah, that's interesting, because otherwise I'd prefer the greater.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. We have short memories of what has happened. And there's a clip I found from Victor Davis Hansen that goes through kind of the Trumpian moment right now. People are like, this is revolution.
Yeah.
And Victor just breaks it down and says, no, this is restoration.
Yeah.
And I just want to play this, see what your take is on this.
Sure.
And they call it the MAGA revolution. It's not a revolution. It is a counter-revolution. There's a big difference. This is a restoration. Let's use the word Trump restoration. We don't really appreciate what we've been through with 8 years of the Obama revolution and the 4-year more radical third term of Obama using or employing the waxen effigy of Joe Biden. A revolution that we've experienced was a cultural, economic, political, social revolution. It was very similar to the French Revolution under the Robespierre brothers. We should remember what they tried to do. They changed the days of the week. They renamed things. They tore down statues. They went after the church. Does this sound familiar? This revolution that we've experienced, everything was up for sale. Everything was negotiable. We invented a third gender and rammed it down people's throats. We tore down statues. We said 1776 was no longer the foundational date. It was 1619. We changed the very mechanism that we vote. We went from 70% of the electorate voting on election day to 70% of the electorate not doing that, either through mail-in or early voting. That was a radical change that had no discussion. It was done by fiat. It was incredible. We looked at girls' sports and we destroyed it. We said that transgendered biological males that were now transgendered females could compete. They won over 600 medals they took away from hardworking female athletes. We had drag shows among young children. It was an effort to change the entire Constitution. We forget that. They were trying to bring in Puerto Rico as a state and Washington, D.C. to get 4 instant senators. They were proud. They said that they were going to pack the Supreme Court. It hadn't been tried since 1937. And it was a object of disgrace ever since, but they were proud to try it again. They talked about making states, the Senate look like the House. They wanted, and a lot of them were advocating it was not fair that one senator in Wyoming, to take one example, is worth 250,000 votes, but a senator in California represented 20 million. They wanted to change the makeup of the Senate. They wanted to get rid of the Senate filibuster.
I remember that.
Remember that.
Yeah.
They wanted to bring back neo-Confederate nullification. 600 jurisdictions in the manner of South Carolina in 1832 or on the edge of the Civil War in 1860 when neo-Confederate Southern states said the federal government's law does not apply to us. Tariffs, Yankee tariffs, no, we were going to override them. Andrew Jackson almost invaded the Carolinas over that, South Carolina. And so these jurisdictions said, federal law doesn't apply here. We're exempt. We have our own laws. Federal immigration law does not apply here. It applies everywhere else to you, but not to us. So this was a revolutionary movement. Movies were different. Sports were different. Take a knee. Yeah. And Donald Trump came in, and it was not sufficient to say we're going to stop the madness of $37 billion. We're going to stop the madness of being short 40 or 50,000 military recruits because of this DEI coupled with the humiliation in Kabul. We're going to stop the appeasement of China. But that wasn't all. He said, the government is broke. We're going to go through all of these agencies. And finally, for the first time in the history of this country, when somebody says they're going to cut federal spending and drain the swamp or cut the administration, we're going to do it. And there's going to be no changing names except to go back to traditional names. And we're not going to topple statues. And if you break the law and you're on campus and you're on a student visa, you're going to go back home. So we're in the midst of a counter-revolution. It's not revolutionary. You know what it is? It's a return to normalcy. It's a return to common sense. It only looks revolutionary to revolutionaries. But to the rest of the people, it is a counter-revolution to restore normalcy and bring the country from the far left fringes back home again.
Yeah, amen. He's a national treasure.
He is. Him, Thomas Sowell, they need some awards from the president.
They do indeed.
Like, I forgot we went through all that.
Yeah. You know, the horrors were developing first. The guys, I was in the Pentagon actually when that was coming back, and then they got the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and all the rattling. I was doing my 2 weeks, but President Clinton was doing stuff. And you think, oh, no. But after a while, when you've got the, what was the, I forget the guy, the admiral who was trans, and then they had this other guy who was trying to steal luggage, and he was working with energy. And they put them side by side, and I thought, wait a second, just run the table, because you're provoking such a revolt here, but it's not a revolt, it's a restoration. Right. And after a certain time, you're thinking, oh, yeah, just keep digging your grave deeper and deeper, and boy, it did blow up on them.
Right. So those guys dressed up like girls that are, and you're saying like that, just poking the American bear, poking us in the eye with that kind of sort of flamboyant, drag show type stuff, and you said, well, okay, I think this is going to backfire, and that's what you're saying. We're seeing
it absolutely did. And I did another piece about what was that? I remember. I think I was listening to a Catholic radio station in Indianapolis, and they were saying that, you had the Iraq and places like looking at Israel, and that's the little Satan, and America's the big Satan. And he said, you better look behind yourselves, because things are happening. There's a birth of the church in parts of even Iran. But and I think that it's sort of like, oh, they're bringing in all these undocumented or illegal aliens from the South, and you think, oh boy, voter, we got this, we're building this thing, fundamental change. But the predominant, they're not like Muslims coming in.
That's right.
They're people who have connection with Christendom, and they have a background. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Catholic Church, and yet you've got this, and you think, that doesn't go down well in the Latin culture to have the flamboyant trans sort of thing, and you may rip your britches here, and I think they are ripping their britches with those guys, and. It'd be fun if they imported a bunch of people. And then even the Muslims up in Dearborn, my grandfather's from Detroit, they're just saying, whoa, this is a bridge too far. So they've messed themselves.
Which is why you have to have a multi-pronged attack with U.S. aid influencing people and reporters, and above all, the church, right?
Yeah.
Like, they knew they had to get inside the church, because if they're going to import these people, they have to say, no, it's okay for you to be gay. That's old Bible stuff. That doesn't apply anymore. Right? They have to have some place for these people to land to say, okay, your religion is going to get in the way of what we're trying to do. So you have to attack the pillars that are going to keep people properly aligned to their doctrine, right? This is what you're going to do. I want to end here, what do we do in this moment? How do we take advantage of this moment with Trump right now as Christians?
Well, and I've seen several say this, like this, there's a moment when we're not persecuted so much. The Catholics are, scary people, and the school boards, you've got people who need to be watched by the FBI, and anybody who prays outside an abortion place, and I think hands off a little bit. So there is a bit of freedom there as well. I think there's no substitute for the church reviving itself. I mean, I think we've had, I don't know how you'd say it, but just a lot of kind of beta Charlie pastors, in a sense that they are so used to just being, easygoing, or they're wetting their finger in the wind. I call it ingratiationism, the idea that the way to get people in is to be not offensive, don't touch on the scripture, and so forth. And so I just think that's kind of blowing up on them. That we had one of our presidents of the convention, or former presidents, use pronoun courtesy. You think, what are you talking about? Like, well, I think somebody says, call me Führer, or call me God. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You're not. And so I think that's not aging very well. And so maybe the pulpits can be strengthened a bit. I mean, I worked on this website called Kairos Journal, funded by the retired CEO of American Standard Corporation, Manuel Campuris. Had a very radical conversion after he lost the wife of his youth. Meantime, there was a young Catholic girl from D.C. who became a Muppeteer, of all things, was dating Seinfeld. I mean, it's amazing, named Camille Benor, and she married him, and they became a dynamic duo. And they started this website so that you could encourage the pastors with material to engage the culture prophetically. And so we were doing conferences in Vienna and Belfast and places, but also in America. And I just think that we've been kind of wimpish or something. It's just only piety or whatever. On the other hand, I do think that there's a lot to be said for the church now running with the notion of just reviving the church and saying, look, this is put it out on the limb and go for it and be active in missions and evangelism and preaching the word and don't shrink, because there's a little bit of encouragement. I think some people are also seeing maybe God hasn't given up on America.
And that's
right.
Yes.
So let's pick up on it. Let's go with it.
Right. Yeah. There is a massive moment of mercy. It seems like, and so what do you do with that mercy? What do you do when God doesn't give you what you deserve? I mean, you figure with 65 million dead babies, and the pride parades, just shaking our fist at the God of heaven. We deserved Kamala. We deserved.
We did.
And I think the image of Trump just barely dodging that bullet is kind of an image for all of us. Like we all all dodged that bullet. We all got grazed, and God has been very merciful to us. And so, what do you do with that mercy right now?
I think building has been one thing we've been talking about, but I think another one is go cause some trouble. Go be unorthodox. I mean, watching Trump, and he's been doing it from when he started, but there's moments to have conversations where you're just like, I'm going to make this very uncomfortable for people who don't want to be righteous.
Right.
Well, but you know what I mean?
I mean, we were joking earlier about sort of Trump as a charismatic pastor, but not really.
Yeah, it wasn't really a joke. It's just what it is.
No, but I think to your point about I don't know what you called him, beta Charlies.
Yeah, as opposed to an alpha male.
I know. But like these, I think you're right. I think we've been inundated with beta pastors, a lot of just beta males in general who haven't taken initiative, haven't taken responsibility, and said, okay, like this mess, it's like this is our mess, and stop making excuses, take responsibility, confess your own complicity with evil and sin,
repent,
and then get clean, get right with God, get right with your wife, get right with your kids, and then take responsibility, and then start. I mean, I do think. I mean, ironically, Trump is not a role model in certain respects, but I think he's more of a role model than a lot of your beta evangelical pastors. And I think we can learn something from that flawed example.
The general revelation of masculinity.
That's right.
Seriously, though. And J.D. Vance, of course, is even more sort of outspoken about his Christian faith as a Catholic. But same kind of thing where it's just like, what does the Bible say? Say it.
Yep.
And a lot
Stand on it.
and a lot more direct approach of just like, don't beat around the bush. I mean, and you can do it in a kind way, you can do it in a cheerful way, a friendly way. But what are you doing? Why are you sleeping around? Why are you drinking so much?
Exactly.
Why are you not at church on Sunday?
Throw away your video games.
I was just thinking back in a number of these controversies. You would take a stand, or even 2019, and people come up to you and say, "Man, said that.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of that. Like, okay,
cheering
The
you on.
quiet
I'm
pat on
cheering
the
you
back.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in seminary, they one of my teachers said, if God doesn't judge America, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. And
Oh, my
and
goodness.
and this was in the 80s. But I'm thinking people may be thinking like, wait a second, maybe he's got something for us here.
That's
We
right.
have a chance.
Amen. Really appreciate you, Dr.
Dr.
Coppinger.
Coppinger, yeah, appreciate you very much.
MarkCoppinger.com. Coppinger with an E in the middle. I almost
Most are eyes. Actually,
I know. I misspelled it a few times.
we were lazy and just couldn't do the dot.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.